What do you mean you canceled the reservation? The engagement party is this Saturday. We sent out invitations weeks ago. The venue was simply too expensive, Olivia, my mother replied, her voice carrying that practiced calm she always used when delivering disappointing news. Your father and I discussed it, and we just can't justify spending that much on a party. We'll find something more appropriate. Appropriate? I could feel my face flushing with anger. The Seaside Pavilion was my dream venue. I had talked about having important celebrations there since I was 16. Dreams need to align with reality, dear. Now, I've been looking at some charming restaurant back rooms that would be perfectly suitable. We already put down a deposit. I interrupted. How much could you possibly be saving by canceling now? A telling pause. It's not just about the money, Olivia, she said finally. It's about setting reasonable expectations for your future. With Lucas's background, perhaps it's better to start with something more modest. The implication was clear, and my stomach twisted into knots. I ended the call shortly after, promising to talk about it later, though I knew the decision had already been made. My name is Olivia Carter. I'm 31 years old, and despite growing up in an affluent Boston suburb, I've spent my adult life proving I could make it on my own. I built a successful career in interior design without my father's connections, bought my own apartment without touching my trust fund, and, most importantly, I fell in love with Lucas Reyes, a brilliant software engineer who came from nothing but built something extraordinary. Even if my parents refused to see beyond his simple wardrobe and quiet confidence. All I wanted was one day. One perfect celebration where my worlds could come together. Where Lucas and I could announce our engagement, surrounded by people we loved, in a place that felt special. And now my parents had taken even that away, with barely a week's notice. As I walked back to my desk, my phone buzzed with a text from my younger sister, Julia. Mom just told me about Seaside Pavilion. So sorry. But silver lining, she's upgrading my birthday venue to make up for the family embarrassment. Isn't that great? I stared at the message, reading it 3 times before the meaning sank in. They hadn't canceled because of the cost. They canceled because they were embarrassed. Embarrassed of Lucas. Of our engagement. Of me. And somehow, that wasn't even the worst part. My sister's birthday was the weekend after our canceled engagement party. Growing up in the Carter family meant understanding that appearances mattered above all else. My father built one of Boston's most prestigious real estate firms through connections forged on golf courses and at high society fundraisers. My mother sat on the boards of various cultural institutions, ensuring our family name was always included in the right publications. Julia thrived in this environment. 2 years younger than me, she embraced the family legacy, dating only men from appropriate backgrounds and pursuing a law degree, not out of passion, but because it was expected. She was the daughter my parents had always wanted, polished, predictable, and perfectly aligned with their values. I took a different path. In college, I spent summers designing community spaces in underserved neighborhoods instead of attending elite networking events. After graduation, I turned down my father's offer of a cushy job at Carter & Associates and joined a boutique firm specializing in sustainable design. And now I was being reminded, once again, that no matter what I achieved, my life choices would never be appropriate enough for them. I locked my phone and exhaled slowly, forcing back the anger and disappointment threatening to overwhelm me. This wasn't about money. This was about control. And I was done letting them have it. Each choice I made widened the gap between my parents and me, but I believed they respected me for forging my own way, even if they didn't understand it. Then I met Lucas at a tech conference in New York, where I was presenting on smart building design. Unassuming in his plain button-down shirt and worn jeans, he asked the most insightful questions about integrating technology into architectural spaces. We talked for hours afterward at a nearby coffee shop. He was brilliant, kind, and refreshingly genuine, qualities I'd found in short supply within my parents' social circle. After 6 months of dating, I brought Lucas home for dinner. The evening was tense. My parents asked pointed questions about his education, a state school on scholarship, and his family, middle class, his father a high school teacher, his mother a nurse. My father barely concealed his disapproval when Lucas mentioned he still drove his college car, a 15-year-old Honda that ran perfectly well. Well, at least he's resourceful, my mother had whispered to me later that night, as if frugality were an exotic trait she was trying to be open-minded about. I chose to believe they just needed time. Time to see the man I saw, to appreciate his brilliant mind and generous heart rather than fixating on his bank account or pedigree. When Lucas proposed 6 months later with a simple but meaningful ring he designed himself, my parents offered lukewarm congratulations and immediately suggested a long engagement. Just to be sure, my father had said, "Marriage is a lifetime commitment. You want to know someone completely before taking that step." What he really meant was that he hoped I'd come to my senses and find someone more suitable. In retrospect, I should have seen the warning signs. The engagement party they'd reluctantly agreed to help plan was never meant to actually happen. The final confirmation came 3 days after the cancellation. I'd been avoiding my parents' calls, needing time to process my anger before confronting them. But as I pulled into their gated estate in Cambridge, I noticed extra cars in the driveway, my aunt's Mercedes, my father's business partner's Range Rover, and my sister Julia's BMW. I found them in the sunroom, gathered around catering samples and floral arrangements. My mother gestured animatedly toward what appeared to be a table layout. "The Harbor View Ballroom has such lovely natural light," she was saying. "And with the head table positioned here, overlooking the water." "What is this?" My voice cut through the cheerful chatter. 5 heads turned toward me in surprise. My mother recovered first. "Olivia, we didn't know you were stopping by. We're just finalizing some details for Julia's birthday celebration at Harborview." It wasn't a question. An uncomfortable silence fell. My aunt suddenly became very interested in her phone. My father's business partner murmured something about a call he needed to make and slipped out. Julia, at least, had the decency to look embarrassed. "I told Mom it was too soon after your situation," she said hesitantly. But she insisted the venue was perfect and already available. Available. Because they canceled my reservation. My voice was eerily calm despite the storm raging inside me. "You canceled my engagement party, claiming it was too expensive, and then booked the exact same venue for Julia's birthday?" My father stood, straightening his golf shirt. "Olivia, let's discuss this privately." "Why?" "Everyone here already knows what happened," I shot back. "I'd love to hear the explanation." My mother sighed, her well-practiced society smile firmly in place. "It's not that simple, dear," she began smoothly. "With the guest list we've cultivated for Julia's event, Harborview makes perfect sense. The connections your father can foster there, and my guests weren't important enough? My celebration wasn't worth it." "That's not what your mother is saying," my father interjected. "Look, Olivia, we've been patient with this phase of yours, the job at that small firm, the modest apartment, and now Lucas." My jaw clenched. "Lucas?" My voice hardened. "What does my fiancé have to do with this?" My parents exchanged a look I'd seen too many times before, the one that preceded some difficult truth they felt obligated to share for my own good. "He's just not suitable," my mother finally said. "Not for someone with your background." "He's nice enough, but he has no ambition, no family connections, nothing to offer." "Except love, respect, and support," I countered, my voice steady. "Things that actually matter." My father sighed heavily. "Your fiancé isn't good enough for this family, Olivia. And deep down, you know it. We're simply trying to save you from making a mistake you'll regret." The words landed like physical blows. I'd suspected their disapproval, but hearing it stated so bluntly shocked me to my core. And in that moment, surrounded by party preparations meant for Julia, but not for me, I finally saw my parents clearly. Their conditional love. Their shallow values. Their absolute certainty that they knew best. I walked out without another word, my mind reeling. They had judged and dismissed the man I loved without ever truly knowing him. And for the first time, I wondered if they had ever truly known me either. That evening, I sat in my condo with Lucas, tears streaming down my face as I recounted what had happened. He listened quietly, his expression more sad than angry. When I finished, he took my hands in his. I'm sorry they hurt you, he said softly. But I'm not surprised by how they feel about me. I thought they'd at least try to get to know you, I said, wiping my eyes. I thought family mattered more than money. Lucas gave me a sad smile. Some people can only see value in things they already understand. Your parents measure worth in a specific way, and I don't fit their metrics. His calm acceptance only made me more determined. Let's host our own engagement party, I suggested suddenly. Something simple but meaningful. We don't need Harborview. We don't need their approval. Lucas hesitated. Are you sure? This is your family, Olivia. I don't want to be the reason you cut ties with them. You're not the reason, I assured him. Their behavior is. Please, let's do this our way. Over the next 2 days, I channeled my hurt into action. I found a charming rooftop venue at a local brewery, reached out to friends, and designed digital invitations. It was coming together beautifully, a celebration that reflected who we really were. Not who my parents thought we should be. Then came Friday morning. My phone buzzed with a call from Julia. Mom invited the Harringtons to my party, she said without preamble. My stomach sank. The Harringtons, as in William Harrington's family. William had been Julia's ex-boyfriend, the son of a prominent banking family whom my parents had adored. They had been devastated when Julia broke up with him last year to date Ryan, a pharmaceutical sales rep they considered beneath her. Now, the invitation made perfect sense. They're trying to orchestrate a reunion, I muttered. She claims it's because his father is considering investing in Dad's new development, Julia continued. But we both know what she's doing. And get this, she told Ryan the party was cancelled due to family issues. But really, she just didn't send him an invitation. I closed my eyes, recognizing the pattern. She's doing to you what they did to me. Not exactly, Julia countered. I'm their golden child, remember? They're not. She trailed off. Not what, Julia? Silence. And then, finally, her voice, softer this time. They're not supposed to do this to me. It was the first time she had ever admitted it. For years, Julia had been the daughter who played by the rules, the one who lived up to their expectations. And yet, in the end, even she wasn't immune to their manipulations. Welcome to my world, I said quietly. Canceling my party is one thing. They're just trying to control who I celebrate with. But Olivia, I'm really sorry about what they said about Lucas. It was cruel and unfair. It was the closest Julia had ever come to openly criticizing our parents. For a moment, I thought I'd found an ally. Why don't you and Ryan join us at our own engagement party? Bring Brad too, and we'll have our celebration right under their noses, I suggested, warming to the idea of this small rebellion. The line went quiet. I can't do that, she finally said. Dad's announcing my promotion to junior partner at the firm during the party. I've worked 3 years for this, Olivia. I can't jeopardize it, even for you. The familiar disappointment settled in my chest. So you'll let them manipulate your life as long as there's something in it for you? What about Ryan? I'll make it up to him. A pause. Look, not all of us can afford to burn bridges with the family, Olivia. Some of us have practical considerations. After we hung up, I sat at my desk, staring at the half-finished invitations on my computer screen. Even my small act of independence felt hollow now. I could host my own party, but the people who should care most, my family, would still be across town celebrating without me, continuing as if my feelings and choices didn't matter. Lucas found me like that an hour later, my engagement ring glinting in the light as I twisted it around my finger, wondering if I was fighting a battle I couldn't win. Saturday morning, the day of what should have been our engagement party, I woke to find Lucas already dressed, sipping coffee on our small balcony. I was thinking, he said when I joined him. Maybe we should go to Julia's party. I nearly choked on my first sip of coffee. What? Why would we subject ourselves to that? Because running away and hosting our own party feels like admitting they've won, he said thoughtfully. But showing up, being ourselves, not letting them dictate our actions? That's standing our ground. They'll be horrible to you, I warned. They'll make snide comments and treat you like you're invisible. Lucas shrugged. They already think I'm not good enough. What's the worst that could happen? By the time we arrived at Harborview Ballroom that evening, I'd worked myself into such a state of anxiety that my hands were shaking. The venue was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Boston Harbor, crystal chandeliers casting a warm glow over elegant table settings, flower arrangements that probably cost more than my monthly rent. My mother spotted us first, her practiced smile faltering for just a moment before she composed herself and glided over. "Olivia, what a surprise. And Lucas." She lowered her voice. "Darling, this is a private family event. We didn't send you an invitation." "I know," I said, matching her quiet tone but injecting steel into my voice. "You made it very clear where I stand. But Julia's still my sister, and I'm here to support her." My mother's smile tightened. "Of course. How mature of you. Please try not to make this evening about your situation. Tonight is about celebrating Julia." As she moved away to greet other guests, Lucas squeezed my hand. "You okay?" "I will be," I promised, though my confidence was wavering. The evening progressed painfully. My father barely acknowledged us, focusing instead on the Harrington family, particularly William, whom he had seated next to Julia despite her obvious discomfort. Lucas was excluded from conversations, served last at dinner, and repeatedly mistaken for waitstaff by my parents' friends. And then, the final blow came during my father's toast. Standing at the head of the grand banquet table, he tapped his glass and smiled, commanding the room's attention. "Tonight, we celebrate Julia, our brilliant, accomplished daughter, on her well-earned promotion to junior partner at Carter & Associates. Julia, we are so proud of you." A polite round of applause. "And of course," he continued, "we are thrilled to have so many dear friends with us tonight, including the wonderful Harrington family. William, your family's presence here means the world to us. It's always a pleasure to be in the company of people who share our values, our aspirations, and our legacy." My stomach dropped. He wasn't just toasting Julia. He was erasing me. Lucas's hand tensed in mine. The message was clear. My father had welcomed William back into the fold, while ensuring that my own fiancé remained an outsider. I glanced at Julia. Her shoulders were rigid, her smile forced. She knew exactly what was happening. And she said nothing. The applause swelled again, glasses clinking, and I felt the weight of it all settle on my chest. This wasn't just about the engagement party anymore. It was about who my parents thought deserved a place at their table, and who didn't. At the head table, champagne flute raised, my father beamed at Julia. "We're celebrating not just a birthday tonight, but a remarkable young woman who exemplifies the Carter values," he announced. A ripple of polite laughter spread through the room as my mother nodded approvingly. "Julia has shown dedication to family tradition, professional excellence, and making the right connections for a successful future." His gaze drifted meaningfully from Julia to William Harrington before continuing. "In fact, I'm proud to announce that Julia is being promoted to junior partner at Carter & Associates, where she will help lead our exciting new venture with Harrington Financial Group." Applause erupted while I sat frozen in shock. This wasn't just a birthday party. It wasn't even just a professional announcement. It was an orchestrated business merger between families, one that would bind Julia to William through their parents' companies, making any possibility of her choosing her own path increasingly difficult. And suddenly, with crystal clarity, I understood what was happening. This had never been about Lucas not being good enough. It was about control. About maintaining the Carter dynasty on their terms. As realization dawned, I felt Lucas tense beside me. Following his gaze, I saw my father deep in conversation with a man I didn't recognize. The stranger kept glancing in our direction, his expression shifting from disbelief to something like awe. "Lucas," I whispered, "who is that man?" His jaw tightened. "Robert Maxwell," he replied, "CEO of Pinnacle Tech." Before I could ask why the CEO of one of the country's largest technology companies would be interested in us, Lucas was already standing. "We need to leave now." As we slipped out, I caught one last glimpse of Robert Maxwell pulling my father aside, gesturing in our direction with unmistakable urgency. Something had just changed, though I didn't yet understand what. "Are you going to tell me what that was about?" I asked as we drove home, the tension in Lucas's jaw visible in the glow of the dashboard lights. He sighed, his shoulders relaxing slightly. Remember that project I've been working on for the past 3 years? The one I couldn't talk much about. The algorithm for predictive analysis in healthcare? I said, frowning. The one that's coming along whenever I ask about it? I had always respected his privacy around his work, assuming it was typical startup confidentiality. Lucas glanced at me, a rueful smile playing at his lips. It's done, Olivia. The development, the testing, everything. I've been in acquisition talks for the past month. I blinked, processing this news. That's amazing. But what does that have to do with what happened tonight? Lucas let out a humorless laugh. Robert Maxwell's company is buying my software. The deal closes Monday morning. The implications started to sink in. Is it a big deal? His laugh deepened, but it was tinged with disbelief. Pinnacle Tech doesn't make small acquisitions, Olivia. Before I could press further, my phone exploded with notifications. 3 missed calls from my father. 2 from my mother. And a text from Julia. What the hell did your fiancé do? Dad and Maxwell are losing their minds. I turned the phone toward Lucas. Care to fill me in on the rest? When we reached home, Lucas pulled out his laptop and opened a press release scheduled for Monday morning. I skimmed the first few lines, my eyes widening as I reached the key details. Pinnacle Tech acquires BioPredict for $175 million. My breath caught. $175 million? I looked up from the screen, heart pounding. Lucas, this is life-changing. He acknowledged it with a slow nod. That's why I've been so distracted lately. The negotiations, the legal reviews, the planning. He took my hands. I wanted to tell you, but the confidentiality agreements were ironclad. I sat back, trying to comprehend everything. My parents had spent the past year looking down on Lucas, dismissing him as not ambitious enough, when in reality, he had been building something revolutionary. And now, the moment they realized his true worth, they were panicking. My father had spent years forging business alliances, believing power was dictated by lineage and pedigree. But Lucas just reshaped the playing field without their permission. Until the deal closed, my mind raced, connecting the dots. So Robert Maxwell recognized you tonight. That's why he was talking to my father. Apparently, Lucas said, running a hand through his hair. I guess he assumed your father already knew who I was. Just then, my phone rang again. My father. I hesitated, then answered on speaker. Olivia, he began, his voice unusually deferential. Is Lucas with you? I'd very much like to speak with him about a potential. Is Lucas with you? I'd very much like to speak with him about a potential opportunity. I leaned against the counter, my voice cool. It's nearly midnight, Dad. What opportunity could possibly be so urgent? A pause. Robert Maxwell mentioned that Lucas's company has developed some extraordinary healthcare technology. Carter and Associates is expanding into the medical office sector, and we'd be very interested in discussing potential collaborations. The audacity was breathtaking. Hours ago, my father couldn't be bothered to acknowledge Lucas's existence. Now, sensing. I glanced at Lucas, a plan forming in my mind. Actually, we'd love to discuss this further. How about brunch tomorrow? Say, 11 a.m. at Harborview. After hanging up. Harborview? Are you sure? Absolutely, if they want to talk business with you, they can do it where our engagement party should have been. And they can face exactly who you are, not who they assumed you were. Lucas smiled but remained concerned. Olivia, I never wanted my work or money to matter in our relationship. That's why I drive an old car and wear simple clothes. I wanted to be valued for my ideas, not my bank account. I took his hand. And I do value for that. But tomorrow isn't about the money, it's about showing my parents the consequences of judging people based on appearances. And about reclaiming our dignity on our own terms. As brunch confirmed. Harborview. Private room. Looking forward to discussing this exciting opportunity with Lucas. Tomorrow, my parents would get their own lesson. The Harborview ballroom looked different in. My parents arrived first, dressed in their Sunday best, their faces carefully arranged in welcoming expressions. Julia came too, curiosity apparently overriding her embarrassment. She'd brought Ryan along, Lucas and I entered last. He wore the same simple button-down shirt and jeans he had. I dressed professionally but modestly. Architect Olivia, not Carter heiress Olivia. Lucas. Wonderful to see you again, my father boomed, extending his hand with newfound enthusiasm. Robert Maxwell speaks very highly of your work. Very highly indeed. Thank you for arranging this. Lucas rep respectful, but unimpressed by their status. Mimosas and coffee appeared, and my father launched into an obviously rehearsed speech, Abu occasionally touching Lucas's arm to emphasize. The same Lucas she couldn't be bothered to speak to directly a week earlier. When my father finally paused for breath, I placed a folder on the table. A copy of the acquisition documents. Lucas's name. The Pinnacle Tech logo. And one number. $175 million. Silence. My father's eyes flicked across the page, his confident smile faltering ever so slightly. Lucas leaned forward. Before we go any further, Mr. Carter, I think there's something you should know. He tapped the document lightly. As of Monday morning, I'll no longer own BioPredict. Pinnacle Tech will. And my involvement with any future business opportunities? That's entirely my decision. My father's expression didn't change, but the tension in his jaw betrayed him. My mother, ever the diplomat, cleared her throat. That's quite an accomplishment, Lucas. We always knew you had potential. Lucas smiled, his eyes sharp. No, Mrs. Carter. You didn't. More silence. Julia shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting between our parents and me. Even Ryan looked uneasy. Lucas turned his attention fully to my father. You've made it clear in the past that I wasn't the kind of man you envisioned for Olivia. You judged me based on the car I drove, the clothes I wore, the family I came from. He leaned back, sipping his coffee. Now that I'm worth something in your world, I suppose that's changed? A muscle ticked in my father's cheek. Lucas, business is business. I simply hadn't realized. Hadn't realized I was valuable? Lucas interrupted smoothly. My father's jaw tightened further. I finally spoke. It's fascinating, isn't it? I said lightly. A week ago, you couldn't even pretend to respect Lucas. Now, you're willing to set up a meeting at the same venue where our engagement party should have been, just because his net worth changed. My mother's hand clenched around her mimosa glass. Olivia, she began, but I held up a hand. No, let's not pretend this is about opportunity. This is about control. About legacy. About ensuring the Carter name stays in the right circles, even if it means dismissing the people who truly matter. I stood, placing my napkin down neatly. We wanted to give you a chance to see Lucas for who he really is. But I realize now you never wanted to see him. Or me. Lucas stood as well, sliding the folder back toward my father. Consider this my official decline, Mr. Carter. With that, we walked out of Harbor View, together, leaving them to stew in the reality they had created. Lucas had shown me the documents earlier, with his permission. Before we go further, I said calmly, I think we should be clear about what we're discussing. I opened the folder, turning it to face my parents. Lucas isn't just developing healthcare technology. He founded BioPredict, which Pinnacle Tech is acquiring tomorrow for $175 million. My father's face went pale as he scanned the document. My mother's smile froze, her eyes darting between Lucas and the paper. I believe, I continued smoothly, that Carter and Associates actually approached Pinnacle last year about partnering on their medical campus, and were declined. Isn't that right, Dad? The silence was deafening. For perhaps the first time in his professional life, my father cleared his throat, his composure slipping. I wasn't aware of the scale of Lucas's involvement, he admitted stiffly. This is certainly impressive. My mother recovered more quickly. Lucas, you should have told us. All this time, we thought. She trailed off, realizing there was no acceptable way to finish that sentence. Thought what? I prompted. That he wasn't good enough? Because he drives an old Honda? Because he doesn't flash his wealth or connections? Julia, who had been uncharacteristically silent, was staring at Lucas with new eyes. Wait. BioPredict, she said suddenly. Ryan applied for a position there last year. They're incredibly selective. Ryan nodded, looking sheepish. I didn't even get past the second interview. Too many qualified candidates. I turned to my parents, my voice measured. Lucas hires people based on their skills and character, not their pedigree or connections. Novel concept, isn't it? The implications were sinking in. The man they had dismissed. The engagement they had tried to undermine. The celebration they had canceled. All based on assumptions about worth that were both wrong and shallow. My father exhaled slowly, his expression stiff. We obviously misjudged the situation. Then, after a pause, he forced a smile. Perhaps we could start fresh. Host a proper engagement party for you both. At Harborview, of course. No expense spared. I glanced at Lucas. He met my eyes, giving me a small nod of support. That won't be necessary, I said evenly. We're having our celebration next Saturday at the Beacon Brewery rooftop. Simple. Meaningful. With people who have supported us all along. I rose from my seat, my voice steady. I didn't come here for apologies. Or to change your minds about what matters. I came so you would understand what you lost with your judgment. Not just a successful son-in-law, but a daughter who needed you to see beyond your own narrow definition of value. Taking Lucas's hand, I walked out of Harborview for the second and final time, leaving my parents to contemplate the true cost of their superficial standards. I walked away from Harborview knowing I had finally made peace with something that had haunted me for years. I no longer needed my parents' approval. Their validation, their version of success, their impossible expectations, they no longer define me. But this isn't just my story. It's something so many of us face. How many of you have ever felt dismissed, underestimated, or judged for not fitting someone else's idea of success or worthiness? I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever been in a situation where you had to prove your worth to people who refused to see it? How did you handle it? What advice would you give to someone still fighting that battle? And if you've ever been on the receiving end of judgment, like Lucas, share a message of support for those who have been overlooked simply because they didn't look the part. Let's turn this space into a community where we lift each other up instead of letting outdated expectations tear us down. More importantly, I want you to take something from my story. If there's one lesson I've learned, it's this. Your value is not determined by someone else's perception. It's not about what car you drive, where you went to school, or what circles you belong to. Your worth is in who you are, how you treat people, and the impact you make in the world. So, if you're struggling with family expectations, societal pressure, or self-doubt, here's my challenge for you. Stop seeking validation from those who refuse to see you. Live your truth. Build your own table. And trust that the right people, the ones who truly matter, will always pull up a chair. Let's talk in the comments. Have you ever had to reclaim your worth?